We've all heard the question before, who would win, an unstoppable force or an immovable object? Well, that is quite literally the question we're going to have when we're talking about the Lions offense versus the Minnesota Vikings defense tomorrow. So stay tuned, it's about to get exciting.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving in. My friends, I understand it has definitely been a hot minute since I have made any content. And I do apologize for not giving you guys a little bit more heads up about it. I was on vacation. I went up to Michigan to go spend time with my family. I was celebrating my wife's birthday. My son graduated from high school. My daughter was home for the first time in a very, very long time. So there was a lot of things going on, and I felt that that was much more appropriate of use of my time than making content. And I understand, obviously, we had the Cowboys game, and we have all this content that's being made about the whole Aiden Hutchinson replacement. It's like, listen, I will talk all about that with my personal thoughts when I do the live stream tomorrow. I'm probably going to do it a little bit early so we can actually talk about that because I know a lot of people have questions they want to ask me. But for this particular episode, we're going to talk about the Vikings defense versus the Lions offense. Now, here's the thing, folks. When we take a look at this game that is coming up tomorrow, this is quite literally what you call a heavyweight battle because you are not only literally dealing with the two best teams, most likely, in the division of the NFC North, but you are dealing with two of the best supposed units in the NFL for their respective sides of the football. Now, I said supposed. Now, obviously, when I say that, I am not referring to our Lions. Here's the reason why. One, our Lions have had a track record over the last two and a half going on 3 years of being a consistent, successful commodity in the NFL with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson. So we don't have to try and prove that we are a successful, consistent commodity. That's number one. But also number two, when we talk about the Minnesota Vikings defense, their defense has been, not exactly a slouch, but the defense they have this year compared to what they had last year is significantly better. So naturally, my question is, okay, what exactly can we realistically expect from this Vikings defense? Well, the first way to answer that question is, who's the guy calling the plays? That's a rather simple question and answer. It's Brian Flores. Now, the one thing virtually everybody knows about Brian Flores is this guy loves to be aggressive. If there was probably a clone twin somewhere of freaking Dan Campbell, it would probably be Brian Flores. Flores loves to be aggressive. His defenses have always been known as some of the most aggressive, heavy blitzing defenses in the NFL. And this defense is no different. It's got the highest it's not only got the best pressure percentage out of all defenses in the NFL, but it also has the highest blitz percentage out of all defenses in the NFL. So, I know for some Lions fans, that's instantly going to start them wondering, well, doesn't that spell trouble for us? No, it doesn't. At least not on an initial surface level. When we talk about our offense, we have perhaps one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL in being able to beat the blitz, Jared Goff. Jared Goff has established himself as one of the best quarterbacks in being able to beat blitzes. Let's just take a look at Jared Goff's stats from this year in his ability to throw against blitzes. Jared Goff has completed 70.7% of his passes, which is for sixth most. He has the most passing yards and the highest passing average per throw in the NFL in this category. He has been tied fifth for the most passing touchdowns with 4, And he has the 7th best passer rating when throwing against the blitz with 112.8. That is absolutely phenomenal. That right there tells me that, hey, when you've got all this nonsense going on around you, you've got freaking 7, 8 guys blitzing you, Jared Goff does not get phased. He can stand in the pocket, he stays cool, he stays calm, and he maintains his composure, and he will find the guy and make the play. Now, I know when we start talking about the other side of this little coin, which is Goff under pressure, that's where people start having issues. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Almost no singular quarterback I have ever seen is good under pressure. It's hard for a quarterback to be good under pressure because now when a quarterback is under pressure, their eyes are no longer down the field. They're not taking directly look at what's in front of them. And as a quarterback, you are trained to always keep your eyes downfield because once you take your eyes off of downfield, you don't know what the hell you're throwing at. You don't know what the hell's going on down there. That's why it's so hard for quarterbacks to be good while under duress. So, what about Jared Goff, though? Surprisingly, actually, Jared Goff, contrary to most people's opinions, has actually been rather decent this year under pressure. Jared Goff has the highest pass completion percentage out of all quarterbacks under pressure this year. He has the 9th most passing yards out of all quarterbacks in this category. He also has the 3rd highest passing average per throw. Now, where the numbers fall off a bit is where he is only got 1 passing touchdown, which ties him for 21st. The passer rating kind of comes up a little bit when it's ranked 15th. But again, comparatively to most other guys in this category, Jared Goff is actually doing rather well. Because again, very few quarterbacks, if almost none, are good against pressure. So, you have Jared Goff, who is absolutely a whiz-bang when it comes to freaking throwing against the blitz. And Jared Goff has proven that he also can handle pressure a lot better than most people give him credit for. So, okay, I've already countered that first argument about Brian Flores blitzing, pressure, Goff. That's already kind of been, kind of neutralized. I wouldn't say discredited, but it's been neutralized. But there's more to this argument. Like I've said, this is obviously a huge game for both teams. It's a division game. It's probably going to be a battle for who gets the first place seed, well, at least for 1 week, as far as who gets bragging rights over who has the lead in the division race. But the reason why this game is also important, the reason why this game also has a bit of significance is because of the situation of the other team we're playing. Let's call it for what it is, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Vikings fans, but when J.J. McCarthy went down with that meniscus tear and was told he was going to be out for the entirety of the season, correct me if I'm wrong, but literally everybody looked at the Vikings and said, yeah, they're probably going to have another top 10 pick. Darnold's going to, hold down the fort, but nobody was expecting Darnold and the Vikings to do anything. And the fact that they've gotten out to a 5-0 start is absolutely unbelievable. Because not a damn person in the world could have said that they were going to be 5-0 and actually held a straight face. I don't care who you are. But when we take a look at this game, we're not talking about Darnold in this episode. We're not talking about our defense versus their offense. That's another episode, which is going to be coming out later. We're talking about our offense and their defense, which I already kind of addressed a little bit. But to continue on that component that I was talking about as far as Goff being great against the blitz, again, much like how I established that our offense has been doing what it's been doing for the last 2.5 going on 3 years, Jared Goff has also established over the last couple of years that, hey, he's not just a one-time, kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Master of being able to beat the blitz. Last year, he was really good at beating the blitz, too. Granted, not as good as he's playing this year, but still it was top-shelf performance. But here's where it gets really interesting. If you take a look at how Jared Goff did against the blitz, against the 2 games we played against the Vikings, because again, Brian Flores was the defense coordinator last year for the Vikings. Here's what you're going to see. In those 2 games against the Vikings, when Jared Goff was being blitzed, Jared Goff completed 43 of 55 pass attempts for 78.2% of his passes, 493 yards, 8.9 an average a throw, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for a 122.2 passer rating. That is absolutely outstanding numbers. It's absolutely ridiculous numbers. And here's why it's ridiculous. Those 55 attempts against the blitz, when Goff was being blitzed. Here's the funny thing, folks. Jared Goff, in both games last year against the Vikings, he dropped back a total of 74 times. Which, okay, between 55 and 74, you're talking 19 different dropbacks. Which means all the throws that Goff wasn't blitzed, potential throws where he might have scrambled, or when he got sacked. Think about that, folks. Out of 74 dropbacks, he was freaking blitzed 55 times. You want to know what that comes out to? 74.3% of the time. That means 3/4 of the time that the Vikings played against Goff last year, he was being blitzed. That is unbelievable. And the fact that Brian Flores did it so much and literally did nothing to change it, I mean, I'm just going to say this right now. I don't know what the hell Brian Flores is going to do tomorrow, but if his idea of trying to stop Goff is again to blitz him, that right there is the literal definition of insanity. Doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. But hey, if Brian Flores does it, by all means, go right ahead. I have no problem with Jared Goff carving you up once again. But let's also keep going down this little rabbit hole here for a minute. Now, why have I been spending so much time on blitz percentage, pressure, and how Goff handles all this? Well, here's why. Because now we're going to start leading into some other information that is very pertinent to this conversation. Again, go back to 2023. Much like this year, the Vikings defense led the NFL in blitz percentage. In fact, their blitz percentage was higher last year than it was currently right now. Last year at the end of the year, the Vikings blitzed 51.5% of the time on their defensive snaps. They were blitzing more than half the time last year. That is insane. Now, last year, the Vikings had a pressure percentage rate of only 21.9%, whereas right now it's at 32.6%, which if you just do a quick math in your head, that's like an extra 10.5, almost 11 percentage points. So I know some Lions fans are going to be like, well, David, doesn't that spell trouble? Not necessarily. And here's the reason why. First and foremost, that 21.9% from last year is a total culmination of all the data that was compiled over a 17-game season. The 32.6 is literally from 5 games. There's no way in hell you can take the weight of a 5-game period versus a 17-game period and somehow try to make an argument that, oh yes, this is of equivalent weight when we're trying to make a comparison. It's not going to happen. Because you can't say, oh, well, these 5 games are going to be, pretty much of the same matter of what it was last year. It's not going to change. But everybody knows that every single week it's going to change. It could get better. It also could get worse. So let's keep that in mind, because for anybody that wants to use that 32.6 like it means something, you need to do so with a bit of grain of salt. But here's the other reason why that 32.6% is not something that I think Vikings fans should necessarily hold on to as if it's the end-all, be-all. Who are the 5 teams that the Vikings have played prior to us come tomorrow? The Giants, the Niners, the Texans, the Packers, the Jets. I'm going to put this up on the screen here for quite a while so that way you guys can see all the numbers. But I went on PFF and ESPN Analytics and I took a look at the pass blocking, grades and win rates for all 5 of those teams so far this year. Obviously, if you take a look at PFF, you're going to get a quick understanding that virtually all of the teams, save one, is in the top 16. So by PFF standards, it looks like they're doing rather well. But if you look at ESPN Analytics on the other side, there's only 2 teams that are in the top 16. The rest of them are either way down near the bottom in the mid-20 area, or they're just outside of average. So here comes your question that I know some people would like to ask. Which freaking measurement system do you go with? Well, I'm going to say this right now. That's a matter of personal choice. So in my honest opinion then, The fact that, the offensive lines through, ESPN are showing that they've not been all that good, now you start getting a picture as to why, the Vikings 32.6 looks the way it does, because they've realistically only gone against one really damn good offensive line in terms of pass blocking, one above average, one below average, and two very absolutely terrible ones. So at that point, then, that makes a lot more sense. Because, we all know the Lions' offensive line is literally the cream of the crop. It is the creme de la creme. It's the best unit in the entirety of the NFL. Nobody is going to debate this. But here's why this is an interesting topic. The only other team that the Vikings have played that I would say is of a similar nature to the Lions right now is the 49ers when they played them in week 2. The 49ers are a team that is usually compared to the Lions because we're usually considered the two best teams in the NFC conference. Well, if you go back to that game against the 49ers, the Vikings sacked Purdy freaking 6 times. And I know some Vikings fan out there is going to be like, see, if we can do it against Purdy, we can do it against Goff. Okay, here, let's figure out something. Where was the pressure coming from, and where were the majority of the sacks coming from also, when you compile all that data together? That's when it gets rather clear. 7 of the quarterback pressures literally came from the right side of the offensive line for the Niners, which, their starting right guard is a rookie, and their right tackle is pretty much kind of like an average player. He's not great, he's not terrible, but he's not a guy I would want as a starter. So you've literally got 2 guys that are, either one, don't know what the hell they're doing just quite yet, or they're just enough to fill in. And, that's right, not only did they give up 7 pressures, but at least 2 of the 6 sacks also came from the right side of the formation. So what does that tell me? That tells me that the freaking Vikings figured this out, and they're like, hey, we're going to intentionally go after the right side of the offensive line because it's the weaker side, which, hell, that makes total sense because, Trent Williams is only the left tackle, freaking massive mountain of freaking flesh and muscle. Yeah, who would I rather go against, Trent Williams or this bozo? That's a pretty easy thought. But, wait a minute here. When we take that thought and now we pivot to this next point here really quickly, who's on the right side of our offensive line? That's right. That's Penei Sewell and Zeitler. And then, you go to the left side of the offensive line, you got Glasgow and you got Decker. And right smack dab in the middle, you got freaking Frank the Tank Ragnow. Where exactly are you going to try and find a weak spot? You ain't going to find one. So at that point, then, you can't just freaking key off on one little area. And that is where the Lions have an immense edge over any other team the Vikings have faced because, we have the best offensive line, and we have an offensive line that is both good at pass blocking as well as run blocking because here's where things really take a difference. The Vikings have yet to realistically face a totally competent run offense. Think about this, folks. If you go back to the first 3 games that the Vikings played this year on defense, none of the teams they played actually had their feature backs. Either they didn't have one to begin with, or, as was the case with the 49ers, McCaffrey was out because he has, Achilles tendonitis. So, you don't have a feature back in those 3 games. Then you get to the last 2 games where, that's right, due to the circumstances of the game, even though those teams had feature backs because the Jets had Breece Hall and the Packers had Josh Jacobs, because the way the game was going, the run game was not utilized. So they were taken out of the game just due to the circumstances. So again, the Vikings defense has not really been tested a whole lot against the run game. Which, wait a minute here. Where have I heard this song and dance before? That's right. I heard this song and dance against the Seattle Seahawks. And then I also heard this song and dance when we played the Cowboys last week. Y'all starting to see where I'm going with this now for a 3rd time in a row? Let's think about this. Let's take a real quick look at this. If you think about it, there's only one team that the Vikings have faced so far this year that has actually put up 100 yards rushing on them. And wouldn't you know it, the team that has done that is the 49ers. the team that is considered rather comparable to us. And wouldn't you know it, not only did they have 100 yards rushing on the ground, but they also had a 100-yard rusher. No other team that the Vikings have played has done that. Well, let's think about this. I just said we have the best offensive line, not only in terms of run blocking, but pass blocking. But oh, wait a minute. We don't just have one feature back. We have two. We have Knuckles and Sonic. We have Gibbs and Monty. Yeah. The Vikings have not yet faced that this year. And seeing as how they've not really been tested on the ground, here's how I can tell you this is going to go most likely. You have a defense that loves to be aggressive with blitzes. Well, how do you beat blitzes? You either beat it through Jared Goff because he knows how to beat the blitz with passes, or you take that aggressive defense and you use it against them with countercuts and misdirection plays because, oh, hey, the defense is going to blitz this way, we're going to do a counter or misdirection the other way. And now you've got the entire defense off to one side, and there is nobody on the backside, and it is sayonara. Yeah, that right there already spells a massive bit of trouble for the Vikings because it's like, listen, you can't just key off on our offense like you did all the rest of them. You have to respect both of our parts of our offense equally or you're going to get burned. That's why this is not even close to similar to any team that they've played this year. And again, the closest one they've come to is the 49ers. But again, the running back the Niners had is not on Gibbs or Monty's level. He's not even close. So there's that component. But then, just to kind of take this all the way back to the very beginning, with Goff blitzing and, beating all that, let's go back to Brock Purdy in that game against the Vikings. Not only are the 49ers the only team that's actually put up 100-plus yards and has 100-plus, 100 running back against them in terms of yardage, the 49ers and Purdy are the only quarterback so far this year that has a 100-plus passer rating against them. I'm going to put freaking Purdy's, stats up on the screen from the game. Considering the fact of how the Vikings defense has been just absolutely praised and fawned over this year, Purdy did actually pretty damn good from a passing, perspective, from, standpoint. But wait a minute here. How has Purdy done this year against the blitz versus Jared Goff? Okay, folks, I'm going to put Jared Goff's numbers back up on the screen for you just real quick here. Again, Jared Goff has the 7th highest passing completion percentage so far this year in terms of blitzing, in terms of beating the blitz. He has the highest amount of passing yards and the highest passing average. He is tied 5th for most passing touchdowns against the blitz. And he has the 7th highest passer rating against the blitz. So Jared Goff is, again, as I just said, the creme de la creme. He is the cream of the crop, summa cum laude. How's Brock Purdy? Here's how Brock Purdy is done. Brock Purdy is 15th in the category of beating the blitz in terms of completion percentage. He is 7th in terms of passing yards. He is 8th in terms of passing average per throw. He is 11th in terms of passing touchdowns. And he's 19th in terms of passer rating. Put it simply to you, folks, it's not even close. You're talking about a quarterback in Brock Purdy who does not have the same composure or the same ability to beat the blitz that Goff does. Furthermore, unlike Goff, he didn't have a feature back, and he sure as hell didn't have 2 feature backs. But think about this. Goff has 2 feature backs. He has the best offensive line, and, oh, that's right, he has Jamison Williams, he has Sam Laporta, he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, oh, and there's that other guy we picked up too, Tim Patrick. Jared Goff literally has a full ensemble of weaponry, which is something that the Vikings also have not yet faced this year from any sort of perspective. So when I say the Vikings defense has quite literally not been fully tested, I sure as hell damn well mean it. The closest they've gotten to being tested was against the 49ers. And remind me, but when they played the 49ers, they only won by 6 points. Oh, and then let me think about this too. Did they or did they not just play the Packers where they were up 28-7 at the halftime period and then barely won the game 31-29 against a gimpy Jordan Love without their 2 starting cornerbacks? Y'all seeing where I'm going with this picture? Jared Goff is by far the best quarterback they're going to play up to this point. He's got the best offense. And Jared Goff has literally had Brian Flores' number for quite a while now. I don't know what you all are expecting come Sunday, but tomorrow, I'm telling you this right now, it's going to be interesting. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and hopefully get it out as quick as I possibly can because I'm literally finishing recording and it's 7:51. So having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, again, I want to highly encourage y'all to subscribe, but I also want to encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. I also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel has a reach and the greater the channel can grow. And with that being said, it's so glad to be back. I am sorry once again that I didn't give you guys some better proper heads up, but at that being said, I'm glad to be back, so hopefully you guys all enjoyed the content, whether you've been a long-time viewer or this is your first time viewing. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I also want to say, hey, I hope you all have something in your life that makes you happy and makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.